The patriarchy can't be real at the same time of you saying that men aren't better to lead within the patriarchy. How would that make sense?
Would you say that white people are better at leading than black people because of systemic racism?
Why has our dominance been so long held? Not even just across our society, across every society. Would you say that there's a matriarchy on Earth right now where women inhabit leadership roles more often than men?
I'm not really familiar with like leadership structures outside of America.
Testosterone leads us to want to be on top of whatever social hierarchy we find ourselves within.
That's not a
true.
biological consequence. I need you to tell me.
That is a scientific fact.
Like more of a drive?
Yeah, if you want to dumb it down, we could say aggression. If you know who Dean Withers is, you know that he's a slimy little weasel that debates a bunch of people online, including Nick Fuentes, among other people. He does this all day. He sits down and debates people on live.
My name is Dean Withers. I'm a 19-year-old liberal. I do political debate for a living.
If you want to know who somebody is at their core, just go back before they were famous and see how they acted then.
Hey, make sure you follow my. I just said the N-word. I mean, I could say that, right? But I cannot say that on stream. I'm retarded.
As you can see, no remorse for actually saying it. According to him, he has the N-word pass. He just doesn't want to say it on stream because he's worried about getting banned. And these are the people that virtue signal the hardest. This type of person is someone that never knew how to talk to women, never fit in with his community. So this is the only way he knows how to do that. He enjoys getting the comments saying he's such a good person for standing up for women's issues. And for whatever reason, I see people lose to him all the time.
We're talking about trans women. No, trans women do not.
Yeah, well, we're talking about.
Have some impulse control before I put you on mute so I could finish speaking.
I'm fine. I'm cool.
Good boy. Thank you. Good boy.
He was doing so well in online debate that Jubilee ended up giving him his own episode called One Woke Teen versus like a million Republicans or something like that. And he did okay. None of his ideas are correct and they're easily refutable, but for whatever reason, people have a hard time with his debate style. I decided I wanted to try my hand with him. The way it turned out is insane. I beat him on every point. He kept trying to reposture and reposition and trying to run away. When that didn't work, he accused me of being a and I've seen him do this around 3 different times now. Whenever he's backed into a corner and he wants to exit the conversation to save face, when he's feeling a little embarrassed, he'll ask them, hey, why are you following minors? Either the chat will say something or he'll bring it up. Leadership positions
CJ,
in America are inhabited by women.
Why do you follow children?
I don't, bro. Don't do that. You get a lot of stupid people that come in here and it might be fun to argue with them. But just because we're having a conversation that's leading more than 2 sentences, you got to bring up like some kid thing, dude. He's done this several times. Now, my following list is public and I was streaming, so directly after the stream I scrolled through my entire following list so that way you know there was no chance I could have changed it, unfollowed people, or misrepresented it. I went through everybody so you can see for yourself. I think it's just hilarious and trying to find a reason where he can exit the conversation without seeming like he's ducking the smoke, which is exactly what he did. You ever heard he who lives in a glass house shouldn't throw stones? Well, Dean is a perfect example of why that's the case. About 20 minutes before I joined as a guest, this girl joined. She sounded very young. She gave him some compliments. He returned the compliments, and then he followed her on TikTok. I watched him do it. Upon further investigation, this girl turned out to be 16 years old. I actually had to go undercover and pretend to be Dean's videographer to ask her age, and then she told me. So, a little bit of manipulation, but I think it's for the greater good to expose that this guy is the guy that's following minors on TikTok and then making false allegations against other people. Psychology 101 would tell me that he's got a lot of skeletons in his closet, and the only way I know this is because I saw it happen. His following list is private, which is sketchy in itself. Why is your following list private, Dean? Why is that the case? Make it public, like mine. I have nothing to hide, so mine's public for the whole world to see. Yours is on private because you don't want people snooping around in there. Hold this guy accountable, especially if you're going to be the one making false allegations against other people. That's a dirty, dirty game you're playing there, Dean. I'm not going to put her username up here. I think that would be a pretty shitty thing to do, but he'll know exactly who I'm talking about, and the 5, 6, 7,000 people that were there to witness it will also remember. I knew this was hostile territory. I knew his 10,000 plus live viewers weren't going to like me, and if you watch the chat, it's actually hilarious.
CJ, do you think that men are better at leading than women?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. I've been waiting to come up. I'm nice to meet you, Dean, and I'm 22 years old.
22. All right. So let's talk about it, CJ. Why do you think men are better at leading than women?
Let's talk about it. So I noticed that a debate tactic that you use all the time is you try to kind of make things one-to-one. Like if I say that a strength, like having more strength as a man is a good leadership quality, that somehow means that that's the one defining attribute. If you can't find something that's just predicated on strength, then that debunks that. Well, that's not true. Back in like primal days, if we were to bring it back to caveman times, strength is obviously a big thing. Nowadays, that's less valuable because we're in a society where strength isn't as prominent. But that doesn't mean that that's
You're
something
right.
that doesn't posture
You're
you
right.
well in society. So,
You're absolutely right. If we were all ooga booga caveman with sticks that we beat each other with, men would be better at leading than women. In fact, this is my hypothesis why systemic misogyny and traditionalism even exists. It's because in the dawn of time when we were all cavemen, Aaron, thank you for the $5 on Venmo, men did have a very clear advantage over women, which was physical strength.
Okay.
And then they used that to plant the seeds of like this oppressor class
Of the patriarchy.
men. And then that is where like modern society and the patriarchy and traditionalism stems from. That fact alone.
But you can see how the advantage of having the testosterone, of having our not only physical strength but our dominance throughout society, as you just admitted, just the groundwork was let up for us to.
No, I don't think that gives you a dominance today.
Just because the physical strength isn't the only thing we're dialing in on doesn't mean testosterone doesn't give us a posturing technique in society. As you just admitted, the patriarchy is real. The patriarchy can't be real at the same time of you saying that men aren't better to lead within the patriarchy. How would that make sense?
Okay, so if an oppressing system exists, those in which are the oppressors are better at leading than the oppressed. Would you say that white people are better at leading than black people because of systemic racism?
Across the global sphere, if we were
Irene, thank you so
dominantly
much
a
for the
white
$10 on PayPal. I
culture,
appreciate you
then
for
I
that.
guess the answer would be yes. Under those terms, I wouldn't concede that point at all. And do you know how many countries there are in the world? I believe there's like 195. Only 59 of them are Caucasian, mainly at least. So it wouldn't give you a dominance over the global sphere anyways. Like Israel, that's a big, powerful force in the world. How would that give you a leg up being Caucasian to, in terms of Israel? I don't know how that would. And of course, like, would you say that country in Africa or an Asian country, do you think China would value whiteness more than another race? I don't think so. So I think that kind of negates itself.
I made the claim in America, right? I will go ahead and respond to this claim as well. Yeah, colorism and anti-black racism exists globally. That is an undeniable truth. It exists globally. We see colorism and anti-black racism in Africa with the white colonizers from France and Spain going in there and stealing their resources and colonizing their countries. We see colorism and anti-black racism worldwide. Of course, I'm not positioned the best to educate you on global anti-black racism. It would take an academic to do so.
Well, listen,
And I'm sure
I did preface it.
No.
Come on, man. Come on.
No.
All right, go on.
And I'm sure there's a handful of people watching the live right now that could. But that aside, I'll re-ask my question very specifically. In America, we have a clear as day system of systemic misogyny and systemic racism, in which we have an intersectionality of individuals in which suffer from oppression. Right? This would include women. However, this would also include all black people, and white people would exist within an oppressor class in this sense because of systemic racism. So would you say in America, white people are better at leading than black people?
Do they have an advantage? Yes. And what's the difference?
Wow. So what is the biological differences between white people and black people?
You
that
just
make white people
outlined
better at
you
leading
just
than
outlined a
black people?
social advantage. Why does it have to be a biological advantage? That's what I said about you trying to make things one-to-one and say, well, if biologically, technically, that doesn't give them an advantage over all random circumstances, then that means it's wrong. I don't think that matters. I think that there's more at play than just biological differences.
So you think that social facts can make a group of people better at leading than another group of people? So
Absolutely.
I just want to clarify. You do think that white people are better at leading than black people?
I'd say they have an
because
advantage
social
over
advantage to do
leading.
so.
Yes, and that's clear because
Wait, but does having an advantage to exist in leadership positions make you better at leading?
yes, it does under our circumstances because context is important. If
Okay,
we're
so-
in, because you're talking about America.
Wow. So what does it mean to be a good leader then? Because I think that you're misconstruing right the claims of the live. So you're saying that social advantages make you better at leading. No, right? So we're going to be looking at an individual's innate ability to like control and like sway the voice and opinion and direction of those around them. And I wouldn't say that this is reliant upon like consequent social advantages, right? You could say that a white person is more likely to be a leader because of social advantages, or has more opportunity to be a leader because of social advantages. But I don't think that any of these traits of privilege make them better at being a leader. It's like the obvious truth is that no, white people are not better at leading than black people.
They have an
but you
advantage.
chose-
But I don't know how you could say it's a systemic
yes or no,
problem.
are white people better at leading than black people? I want a yes or a no. I don't you want to
Yeah, I'll say yes. I'll say yes. I'll say yes. In the society that we live in right now, then the answer would be yes, of course, like radically yes. I don't know how you could be on both sides of the fence and say that there's a
So would you
systemic
say that
racial
people
issue,
shouldn't
but
have
also
voted?
it's
Would you
easier.
say that
It's just as
people
easy to
shouldn't
lead.
So would you say that people shouldn't have voted for Obama in 2008 because he was black and he was running against
Now
a white man?
that's one specific example. If we're talking broad scale, because you can always find a woman that's
Jason,
better
thank
than
you
a
for the
specific man.
$4.
You know what I mean? There's more nuance than you're trying to bring up. And this is what I saw with your debate with Nick Fuentes too. The lack of nuance. It's just there's nuance in these statements that I feel like a lot of people that come up here, they don't try to
Do you
attack
think
at
that
all.
Nick Fuentes won that debate?
Actually, no. I actually DM'd you at the time too. I didn't know how big you were. I said that you won that exchange because he wasn't even pointing out the nuance. So I mean, that's I'm not to credit your ideas, but to credit your debate style. It caught him. This TikTok debate style is very unique, and I swear you're smart enough to know what the nuance is. But it's easy to win these arguments by pretending like there's none. And that's what's sickening. It's like, I think that you actually agree with me.
No, I don't. I mean, like, so far, you've been on my live for about 10 minutes. You haven't really told me why men are better at leading than women. You've just said, but the nuance. I think, like, you said, like, one word, testosterone.
Well, I can get into it.
So, I mean, so how about I concede and agree that we need more nuance in these conversations?
I can get into it. I can get into it. I would like to.
One moment. So let's talk about it. So you're saying the higher levels of testosterone present in men compared to women make them better at leading. So what are the relevant consequences / effects of testosterone that make people with higher levels of testosterone better at leading?
Well, you would agree that there are biological differences that lead us towards different decision making on average than women. Like from men to women, you see these transpire within the workplace, within society at large. You see that men are more suited and they pursue leadership positions more. I say that fact alone would prove that men are better at leading because they seek those positions out more commonly than women do. I don't exactly know what your position is too. Do you think they're exactly equal? Is that your position, or do you think that women are better at leading?
Okay, well, I mean, I don't think that we could like make any judgment based upon the two categories of man and woman, gender identity, or what's in between your legs to demonstrate how good or bad you are at leading. And that's like saying who's better at leading someone that likes Nike or Jordan shoes. It just makes no sense. It's gibberish in my mind. But CJ, I want to let you know this is your fault. You're the one that called for nuance, so I'm going to go ahead and point out a conflation that you just made in your statement.
Sure.
So you said that you would agree that there's biological differences between men and women, males and females on average, and then you conflated that to why we see men more driven towards leadership positions in society compared to women, right? I don't think that is a fair conflation to make at all, because I think that this can be explained outside of biological distinctions between men and women and completely within the confines of society and what is stigmatized for women and what is promoted for men. Like, obviously, when you push traditionalism on generations of Americans for hundreds of years, and you tell the women that they're not supposed to be in these leadership positions, and you tell the men that women aren't supposed to be in these leadership positions, you're going to see drastically more men in these leadership positions. And then when it starts to open up towards women in these fields, you're going to see the men stigmatizing that. But that absolutely does not speak towards the woman's ability to be in those positions. And I could give you a very clear, crystal cut example to understand this. Okay? STEM fields, very similar to leadership fields, is something that has been promoted for men and stigmatized for women. Following your logic, this would tell us that men are better in STEM fields than women. Is that true? No.
That's that's a specific example that you would have to follow a different line of logic for.
15% of surgeons are women. Using your logic, we'd expect men to be better at surgery than women, but the AMA and the JMA would vehemently disagree with their study on 1.4 million patients that demonstrated that if you're operated on by a man compared to a woman, you're more likely to die or to experience negative post-operative outcome results. So no, just because something exists as a domination of the man doesn't mean that the man's better at dominating it.
It's a damn good example to follow, and it's something that's revealing enough to look into. I would argue your point and say that, are these stigmas the reason why we fall in line with these behavior patterns, or are the stigmas created because we're better suited biologically? Because it had to start at a root. Why has our dominance been so long held, not even just across our society, across every society in the world? There's really no women majority. Would you say that there's a matriarchy on Earth right now, and not just a woman leading, but would you say that there's a system set up in the world where women are better suited to succeed and inhabit leadership roles more often than men?
I'm not really familiar with like leadership structures outside of America. Well, one second.
Go on.
One second. There's plenty of people saying yes in the chat. I'm just not aware with like leadership structures outside of America. So, anyways, to respond to your point of what created these stigmatizations, is it the fact that men are better in these fields, or is it the fact that men dominate these fields and are perceived perceived as better because of that privilege. Well, I mean, I'd argue that the stigmatization exists because men just perceive themselves as better because they have that privilege. And countries that are more egalitarian by nature, meaning that they have more gender equality, we see less of this stigmatization existing for women to go into leadership positions, to go into STEM-related fields, and thereby we see more women in the fields outperforming or performing on par with the men, right? A good example of this would be the Nordic countries in America. It's not in America, in Europe, okay? They're significantly more egalitarian with more gender equality, and we see disproportionately more women in STEM-related fields, disproportionately more women in politics, disproportionately more women in leadership positions, right? And what this tells us is that it has nothing to do with the innate abilities of men and women, and all to do with what is societally promoted and what is societally stigmatized due to privilege or lack thereof.
So if that were true, if that were true in enough examples, I'd say like more than 5% of structures in the world were like that, then that would be kind of interesting. That would be thought provoking for me. But I don't believe it to be anything close to that. But I mean, would you say the reason why only 7.4% of leadership positions in America are inhabited by women?
Why do you follow children?
I don't, bro. Don't do that.
No, I've seen like 50 people in my chat repeat that you follow kids. I'm gonna go check for myself.
Bring them up if you want to make that a thing. Bring them up. Then I've got nothing to hide, bro.
No, I don't need to bring someone up in my chat saying this. I happen to have a second device where I could just check for myself.
Yeah, do it. That's what I'm saying. I'm not one of these guys. You can do the gotcha. I see that you tend to say this every time you're down, because you get a lot of stupid people that come in here, and it might be fun to argue with them. But just because we're having a conversation that's leading more than 2 sentences, you got to bring up like some kid thing, dude.
No, I've completely debunked your points. Like, for instance, you continue to reiterate this point that men are better at leading than women because they hold like the privilege of the patriarchy, right? I've related this intersectionally to race. I've showed you to yield an absurd outcome when we do so. I've also related it to more egalitarian states that would show that this is nothing more than a consequence, what is socially promoted and what is socially stigmatized. And then I've also pointed out the fact that you're not able to name the ingrained biological distinctions between men and women that would make men better at leading.
I did.
Like, no, I don't need help by appealing towards the chat to bring up something else.
It's just what it seems like. I don't know why you would say that. It's just a weird thing to say. But I'll say this, bro. I'll say this.
I was just looking through it. Can you wait? I want to ask you a question. What are the differences between men and women that make them better at leading? You've said testosterone. You never answered my question.
Okay,
what effects on the body does testosterone have that makes men better at leading than women?
Yep, it's pretty clear because one of the big differences we have is testosterone. So I would relate that to basically every major difference that you see on large scale. So in the world, you brought up maybe one example where it's favorable to be a woman, but
biological differences.
We're talking about better or worse, right? So
yes, but
let me follow my thought real quick, bro.
Biologically speaking, right, that is relevant insofar as determining that men are generally better at leading than women. It's a very simple question.
Yeah, so I mean, testosterone would be the answer, and then the outcomes of testosterone is what I'm trying to explain. If you see it on large scale, we're talking about better or worse. If you can point to one example, that still doesn't say that they're equal or better or worse. All of our countries and societies, they've been developed from the ground up in different areas at different times with different circumstances. So if you see men succeed this is
the issue with you. 5, 4, 3, 2, stop. Okay, I asked a very clear question. I asked you what the biological consequences were that testosterone has that are relevant in your determination that men are better at leading than women, and then you respond to that with a yap at like 100 words per minute about societies, cultures, countries.
Okay, testosterone leads to aggression.
Facts.
Testosterone leads to posturing. Testosterone leads us to want to position ourselves within whatever social hierarchy we find ourselves in, which is going to be different depending on the circumstance.
No. I'm asking you for the biological consequences.
Testosterone leads to more
higher
aggression.
levels of aggression.
Sure.
Anything else?
I think you understand what I'm saying. Testosterone leads us to want to be on top of whatever social hierarchy we find ourselves within.
That's not a biological consequence. I need you to tell me. So, are you saying like a drive?
That is a scientific fact.
Like more of a drive?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to dumb it down, we could say aggression, and we could just go off of that. If you need an exact term, that's fine. But aggression is what leads us to want to be in these positions in the first place. In pursuit of these positions, in pursuit of the power is almost more important than how we yield it, because as long as we're in these positions on greater scale, we're going to have more experience within these positions. We're going to have more of a demographic that makes up.
Okay. I asked you a very simple question. Now you're just adding on words and garbage. So the question that I asked you was, what are the biological consequences of higher levels of testosterone that promote men to be better at leading than women? And your answer is higher levels of aggression. Also, first of all, about your following, I was able to click through it and find at least like 3 minors. I don't know why you're following teen girls that post videos of them dancing. That's like really fucking
I don't do that, bro. I don't do that.
I'm literally looking at one. I am. I'm looking at it on my computer.
It says
right
13
now.
girls, bro. That's not.
Yes, 17. In fact, that's just one.
If that is the case, bro, drop the names. I'll unfollow. I'll be happy to do it. That's not something I even think is appropriate
I don't
to
think I'm
talk
gonna
about.
name a 17-year-old on my live for like 6,000 people to go harass.
So I don't know how we follow up from there.
I did it. I didn't mean to tell her to meet me at the CVS at 7:30. Please, you have to believe me. No,
Okay.
I didn't mean to bring a condom in my backpack. No,
Okay,
it
so
was an accident.
we'll just assume that I'm a bad nature person, and I guess we'll go from there.
Well, I mean, makes sense considering your argument. You're saying that men are better at leading than women because they have higher levels of aggression. No, that's not something that results in the consequence of better leadership. That's something that results in a consequence of higher rates of violent crime.
That's why I tried to define the other attributes, but you weren't having it. You needed a
higher
thing.
levels of like domestic violence, higher levels of kidnapping, higher levels of arson, higher levels of like, I don't know, cyberbullying with threats of violence. By the way, these are all statistics pulled from the FBI crime statistics that men disproportionately commit them all, right? 92%, in fact, higher levels of grape, right? And then on the large scale, I'd say that aggression, right, can be very easily interchangeable with impulsivity. You're also following a 14-year-old.
Box me, bro.
14-year-old.
Oh my fucking god.
I don't really want you on my fucking live. That's weird as shit. We're gonna move on to our next guest. That is really fucking weird.
I kept on asking him to pull up a name, show me somebody. All that chat really had to say, I looked through the entire log. The only name that was brought up a few times was this name right here. But let's take a look. Let's see. And I actually know the answer because I went to school with her. So here's the girl that they were talking about. In one of the first posts on the top of the page, it says, your college friends turn into family so fast. Maybe they made a judgment and said that she looked young. And I saw another name actually, Liv Graber. Let's take a look. Let's check her out. This is Liv Graber on my following list. And one of the first 3 videos at the top here is a college life video. Her in college. You can't just listen to everything chat tells you. Let this be an example for you to move more responsibly in the future. Bro, I'll say it like this. You were chasing down Bryce Hall because you wanted to box him and debate him. I'd like the same from you. You made false allegations against me that you knew were lies, and I'd like to box you. Man to man, I'll pull up to you. I'll bring whatever gloves you'd like. We can do whatever round structure. I don't really care. Let's box, and then we can debate in person or online. It doesn't matter. I'll follow suit. You name the time and place. I'm in New York. I think you are too, so I'll cruise right up to you. So man to man, I want my fade. I'll pull up to you. Let's make it happen. Don't weasel out of this one too. Internet's watching.